Hey everybody, my name is Zach Bickle. I'm the athletic director at Lake Country Lutheran High School. I appreciate you taking the time to review the information that was presented last week at our LCL Sports Information Night. So I'm just going to walk through a slideshow presentation. If you've registered for a fall sport, you've seen some of this, but I think it's really important to review some main points and make sure that we're all on the same page heading into the upcoming season. So thanks for tuning in and taking the time today. So along with myself, I want you to be aware that there's many people serving our athletic program here at Lake Country Lutheran. Megan Lopnow is our administrative and athletic assistant. She's also our Bolts liaison. Megan is a great assistant in many facets of our program. She's also coaching JV girls basketball this year and helped out with softball as well. Our head athletic trainer is Andy Kirk. Andy actually presented last week at the parent meeting. You can see his email address down below. Andy's been providing athletic training services for LCL for many years and has just done a tremendous job. He is the owner of Body Mechanics Physical Therapy, and he's a great resource for our athletic program, for our student athletes, and you as well. So please don't be afraid to ever reach out to Andy via email and connect with him if you have any questions. Our athletic training staff staffs our home athletic events, games, and then he will also be here on Tuesday and Thursday to see athletes after school as needed. Amy Pickelman is another one of our athletic trainers that works with Andy as well. So, and John Minier is our director of We Play for Him. He is actively involved in our youth program, and there's a lot of collaboration obviously between our Thunder and summer programs and what we do at the high school level. So John has also been working hard to work with the signage outside at our athletic facilities, and there's some advertising opportunities if you were unaware. So if you're interested in ever pursuing that, please be sure to contact John. And then finally, Luke Hodick. You have probably seen Luke out at one of our athletic events. Luke is the athletic director for the whole association. So he's a great resource and a critical team member for us to continue to push athletics forward. He works closely with both Milwaukee Lutheran and Martin Luther's ADs as well. So please don't ever be afraid to reach out to any of us. Obviously, along with our wonderful coaching staff, all of you and all of our student athletes, that's what makes up this athletic department. In front of you have our mission statement, and I think it's really important that we keep this at the forefront of what we do. And at Lake Country Lutheran, as part of the Lutheran High School Association of Greater Milwaukee, our mission is to share Jesus, shape lives, and develop leaders. And that's what our program is all about. We're also a proud member of the Midwest Classic Conference for most of our sports. We're part of the Metro Classic for football. And then we are also members of the WIAA. One of the things I presented last week was just something to think about as we head into the new athletic year. And this is a saying that is written on the walls in our athletic training room. It's a verse that has hit home for me, and I feel like something that is very applicable in the world of sport. And so Philippians 2:1-2 says, "Therefore, if you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, if any comfort from his love, if any common sharing in the Spirit, if any tenderness and compassion, then make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit and of one mind." And so as I think about Paul's letter to the Philippians here, I think about an athletic program in that sense as well, and the opportunity that we have to be unified in everything that we do. Sports and the pursuit of excellence in earthly things can be very fleeting at times if we don't stay grounded in why we're doing it. And I love referring to this verse because it brings it out of why we do what we do. It offers perspective for our student athletes to understand that they're redeemed children of God before they're an athlete, and that's frees them up to then go out and use those God-given abilities to their fullest. So particularly in this verse this year, make my joy complete. I just love that idea of that's why we do things, to serve the Lord and bring glory to his name. So I encourage our athletes and our parents and anyone affiliated with our athletic program just to be a shining light this year and keep this verse as a reference as I have. As mentioned before, Andy Kirk is our head athletic trainer. Andy is a certified physical therapist and athletic trainer. He'll be at school on Tuesday and Thursdays along with our home athletic events. Either him or Amy Pickelman will be covering those activities. So just encourage you to touch base with Andy if you have any concerns about your student athletes or any injuries that they might have. Registration and the sports that we offer. In the athletic handbook, it outlines the different sports that we are offering this year. I think it's important to point out that some of the sports are not affiliated with the WIA or governed by the WIA. We also have certain sports that are co-ops where we do not necessarily lead that activity. And so as you look in the fall, cross country, football, and soccer for the guys, cross country field hockey is actually a co-op with ULS for girls. The girls swim team is a co-op with Milwaukee Lutheran and Martin Luther. Tennis is also a co-op with Milwaukee Lutheran. And then we have volleyball as well. And then in the winter, we have men's and women's basketball. We have wrestling. We have downhill ski, which is a co-op with ULS and Brookfield Academy in Trinity. Men's swimming is a co-op with Milwaukee Lutheran and Martin Luther, and Milwaukee Lutheran is the host of that. We have ice hockey co-ops in place for the guys and then for the girls as well. So we co-op with the Brookfield schools for guys, and we co-op with with Arrowhead for the girls. But I also want to note that moving forward after this year, we will not have those co-ops in place for hockey. We have a dance team. They are governed by a different association than WIA, but we run it like a WIA activity. And then downhill ski is also open to women as well. And then in the spring, we have baseball for the guys. We have softball for the girls. We have golf. It's the guys' golf season. Girls are permitted to golf with the guys if they are interested in doing that. We have boys tennis. We have boys and girls track and field. And then I have it listed as a spring sport, but it really starts in the winter, and that's trap shooting. And trap shooting is we treat it as a varsity club sport in that you can still qualify for varsity awards, but it's a unique sport in that you can participate in trap shooting along with another sport. So they meet on Sundays, and Brad Patterson is the head coach. So if your son or daughter is interested in that, we definitely want to connect you with Coach Patterson. All right. We do not lead any co-ops at this time. The co-ops that we are part of, those are led by other schools. So just to point that out. We have new athletic registration this year. Many of you have figured that out through the fall. The same platform that we use for our scheduling is now what we're using for our athletic website and online registration. So just a couple of reminders about online registration is that you need to set up a family account first. And then once you set up your family account, you can register all your athletes. They'll need to register each season. So if they're playing basketball in the winter, they'll need to register. All that information will be in there. You'll just have to select the sport and pay for it. And then reminder, athletic physicals are needed every 2 years. And then when you don't need an athletic physical, you need what's called an alternate year card. But we've included that electronically as part of registration. So you don't need to hand in a separate form. You actually sign off on that through the registration process. And finally, this is something we started last year, and this is just to avoid the chaos and the anxiousness right at the beginning of the season. But your son or daughter does need to pick up their athletic participation permit. It's just a little slip of paper from the office, and that says, hey, they're cleared to participate. They hand that to their coach on the first day, and they know they're good to go. Coach knows they're good to go. So I encourage you to get out on this early. Our fall athletes have done a great job of that, even though we're not in school quite yet. So that's been great. But just a reminder that all athletes will need another athletic participation permit for their winter sport and then for their spring sport. All right. I already went over some of those things. I do want to point out that we do have tryouts for volleyball, basketball, and baseball. That's the structure of those programs right now, the numbers that we have. So there is not necessarily a guaranteed spot. You need to go through tryouts for those sports at this time. So several different ways that we're going to communicate from the athletic department. The first one is lightning flashes that I try to send those out every 2 to 3 weeks. That's an electronic newsletter that'll just highlight and have some news along with some important announcements. So look for that to come out. I send that out to our alumni and then all of our current families as well. I mentioned that we have a new athletic website. Our school website is listed there, but our new athletic website is now it's synced up with the athletic registration and synced up with our school. The letter R school platform is what we use for the schedule. So that'll all be synced up. It's a little bit of a work in progress right now as we get the format of what those sites look like. So, but know that we have a new athletic website. Our Facebook obviously is a way that we'll communicate. Our Twitter at LCLHS. I always post to Twitter about cancellations or postponements due to weather. So if you're wondering if there's a game that day or bad weather is in the area, I will post that to Twitter, and I try to do that between 1 and 2 on those game days because we like to try to get out ahead of that and before teams are hopping on transportation and things like that. So, and then as I mentioned, our school, the calendar, that's the most accurate athletic calendar that we have. It interacts with other schools' calendars. So when we schedule a game with, let's say, Watertown Lutheran Prep or Brookfield Academy or Lakeside Lutheran, that goes right onto the schedule right away. So if there's more specifics like cross-country meets and start times and things like that, you'll get that, your athletes will get that from their coaches. Our school calendar just lists the official start time for those games and practices. All right, so it is the first place that we update, so you can have access to that as well. You can actually download an app too, and that's in if you look at the Lightning Flashes newsletter, I have that listed on the side on how to go ahead and download that app. So I encourage you to do that to stay on top of all the schedules, and you can actually sign up for notifications, and also you can look at the schedules individually as well. So winter is fairly updated. Spring is not quite there yet. So we're talking about schedules. Transportation is there's some new updates that we have with transportation. So first and foremost, LCL does not have a bus this year. We sold it over the summer, and so we will be renting our bus through different local companies. Anyone who has seen the signs around realizes and recognizes that transportation and finding drivers is an issue for everyone right now. We also recognize that some of our athletic departure times come at a time when bus companies are on their regular route. So we're still going to be using busing, but it will not be the LCL bus, and we might have to get creative at times if especially around those departure times right by the end of school, when we might not be able to work with a bus company. We do have 2 transits that we will transport athletes in when we can. Again, the transportation schedule will be communicated from the coaching staff. But I would also just mention that there might be some times where we lean more on our parents this year to help with getting their athlete to and from events. So hopefully it's not as much of an issue, but I just wanted to put it out there that that's what we're looking at for this year. Transportation to practice locations for co-op sports, that has to be the responsibility of the athlete and their family. So any arrangements that you make for co-op sports, if you're off-site for a specific practice, like I know cross country goes off-site on occasion, the coaching staff will notify you of what that plan looks like. So we just want you to be aware of that and understand what's going on. And certainly if you have any questions about how we're approaching our transportation this year, feel free to contact me as we're just navigating some new waters without a bus. Just want to talk about our BOLTS program. BOLTS is our booster club. It stands for Body of Lightning True Supporters, and we have a structure in place that allows for our families to be involved through our servant teams. So Megan is going to send out a list of the servant teams and then assign each of those servant teams to some of the different events throughout the year. It is a way for us to raise money through offering concessions at our athletic events, and we rely heavily on your involvement. So we found that the servant team structure, while we're assigning you and telling you got to do it, telling you that it's been a great experience, and it's been a tradition here at LCL that we certainly want to carry on. So there are some specific roles and then some specific events. So the craft fair and the proceeds from the craft fair benefit the athletic program. Big thanks to Jody Bowen, who has run that for many years and will continue to do that this year. In the past, we've had specific people that did setup and takedown of concessions, and we're actually getting away from that because we're simplifying the concessions process, and we brought on Steve Cantwell. Steve's going to be our game day concessions manager when we're doing what we'll call tier 2 concessions. Tier 2 is when we're going to offer grilled food or fried food, so we're working with specialized equipment. When we go with just tier 1 concessions, that's very basic, and so our servant team can come in, look at the instructions on how to fire up the popcorn machine, and just do some basic items. So we look forward to having Steve on board with us. Hopefully that makes it a little less intimidating on those days when we're offering more at the concession stand, and our parents on that servant team can just enjoy the experience a little bit better. A great opportunity for fellowship and a great way to serve our athletic program. So thank you to Erica Kelbell and Wendy Lombardo, who have helped carry on concessions here from last spring, and we still have them helping out in different capacities, so we appreciate that, but we also know that with bringing on Steve, it's going to help in that operation. So I'm always looking for people who want to do specific jobs for the athletic program. One of the things I see a lot of is just cart driving, especially in the spring, out to our fields in the back there, soccer, softball. Certainly in the fall, we welcome that as well. So I end up giving a lot of rides, which I enjoy that. It's just that you get pulled in a lot of different directions on game day. So if we have people that are willing to help out in that capacity, that would be awesome. And so yeah, if you have a certain talent you would like to contribute, and I'm open to getting you more involved on a more specific basis if you're interested in that. So please don't shy away from contacting me. As we get into basketball season, the scoreboard operating and doing statistics and the book and things like that become a need as well. So please communicate with me if you're interested in that as well. So I'm going to start going through some highlights of the handbook, and I don't have them listed there, but I'm not going to read the whole handbook to you. I just want to point out a few things. So you can reference the handbook as we go. That might be an easy way to follow along, but know that we have this as a reference to you. I need you to know that I'm using the handbook on a regular basis. Our coaches are. We're trying to lay out things in a simple manner, laying out expectations, again, being one in spirit, one purpose, unified here. And so these policies are things that if you have a question, a lot of times it's right here in this book. So as we go through it, I did, for our athletes, I put some specific Bible passages in there that I think are really applicable to sport, and especially for an athlete as we talk about just the emotional level and investment in sports. Sometimes I always think it's good to refer to these passages to help keep perspective and provide a direction, especially for our athletes. They're ones that I've learned over the years that have helped in that for sure. So those ones are for you athletes, all right? Team philosophies are laid out there, so I always just like to have that written down and in front of people. High school level here, very competitive at times, and so equal playing time is definitely not something that we can guarantee. So, but we have we have very clear expectations in how we lay out our different levels when we have them with JV2, JV1, and varsity. Moving on to the athlete code of conduct, there's a list of them there. I don't like, preaching or teaching to the test, right? We hope that all of this that's written down there just comes from the heart, and the actions reflect the values that we have as Christians, and yet we know that our athletes need to be guided at times. And so I wanted to highlight a few of those points, actually 4 of them. Number 1 is that it's a privilege to be in LCL athletic. It's a privilege to be a part of a team. It's a privilege to wear that uniform and be able to represent our school and our Lord and Savior on that bigger platform. And so with that does come additional responsibility, and it is important for the athlete to recognize that school is first, both academically, both from a behavior standpoint. And so if those requirements, if those expectations aren't met on the school level, you're not going to have that opportunity to participate and compete at the athletic level. So it's really important to put your academics first, to make sure that you're following rules as outlined in the school, and ultimately just enhancing our whole school community by being active leaders in our school. Next one is just to be respectful to others. No offensive remarks, trash talking, taunting, boastful celebrations, or other actions that would demean individuals. We need to treat game officials with respect. I think it's really important to point out that we don't have competition at a bigger scale if we don't have a team that we can compete against, and we don't have officials that can manage that game. And so I just like to point out to athletes to have that perspective, and we do a great job of that here. And nothing's cooler than seeing our kids go out and compete really hard, and then just being extremely respectful in the process, helping each other up off the floor, recognizing when other teams are doing good things. So that's awesome to see in sport. And so I definitely encourage our athletes to continue to be just a shining light and a great example in that way. And then finally, just to be coachable, open-minded, and willing to listen, trust, and learn. There's a lot of different experiences in sports that can teach you and help you develop as an individual. And so in order to do that, you have to be open to those opportunities and open to those things. So that's my encouragement as we review the athlete code of conduct for our athletes this year. Code violations, just laid out a number of things that are more serious in nature that will for sure result in game suspensions, anything related to different anything that related to violence, theft, negative acts or vandalism, anything resulting from suspension from school, and then possessions of drugs or alcohol and use of those items. So that's all outlined there. I just like to make sure that everybody knows there's very clear-cut responses when those expectations aren't met with the code violations. As far as just the spectator code of conduct, it's all about how we act. Writing it down means nothing. And so the biggest thing that I would just ask of our parents is that you're a wonderful example for your child. I know that, again, the emotional investment in sport and the emotions during competition can be all over the place, and I would just ask you to always be respectful of officials. We do not need to be yelling at officials or correcting them. There's going to be things in the game that we don't like or agree with, but we need to be able to demonstrate self-control and certainly be respectful of those that are managing the game. And then also just to be an encourager at all times to your athlete, and be an encourager to our coaching staff, and support what they do. So you can read through that list, but again, I believe if we're truly one in spirit and one in purpose, that these things will shine through and will not be an issue. So academic eligibility, if a student has an F or an incomplete on a Monday, they will then sit out their sport for a week in order to get that grade back up. I definitely encourage lots of communication with their teacher to avoid that getting to that point. And we would also give a grace period at the beginning of each semester, so we're not going to do grade checks right away. Right, we're going to let everybody get established and get going. All right. WIA regulations are laid out there. Sorry, I skipped a slide there. But just finishing up with the handbook here. There's a new school regulation that I wanted to draw your attention to, a new policy, and that is that no athlete will be allowed to practice or play in a contest if absent from school during the day. Okay, a student who gets to school by 9:30 may participate in practice or a contest. In the past, it's been 11:30. It's 9:30, right? We all know the value of being in person and our kids needing to be students first. We need them there in the morning for class. This rule, this guideline, this policy is not in place to prohibit excused absences, right? So there's always, we'll always honor and be respectful of excused absences as they relate to school, college visits, family emergencies, doctor's appointments, things like that. But we just ask that you check with the office there, okay? And then just school regulations are outlined there. I encourage you to look over those. And then finally, just as we wrap up with the communication piece, I would encourage you to be advocates for your child and encourage them to talk to their coaches and to advocate for themselves. I would also ask that we honor the 24-hour rule unless there is unless your child's in immediate danger or injury. But the 24-hour rule is simply that after something happens that maybe we don't agree with or we need to talk to somebody about addressing a coach, that we would allow 24 hours after that game or after that incident to go through so that we can just have a clear head as we address the issue. All right. Final updates for you. Thanks for sticking with me here. But we're selling season passes again. We're going to do that for the fall, and then we'll do season passes for the winter. We charge for football, varsity football, and then all levels of volleyball in the gym, and then we charge for all levels of basketball in the winter. So we have season passes available. They'll be available at the first few games. Discounted price. We want as many people at our athletic events supporting the Lightning as possible. All right. Live streams, since there are no current restrictions on spectators, we will be continuing to live stream when we can, but there might not be 100% be able to do that on the schedule. So we do have the NFHS camera for the indoor. That's a subscription based, and I anticipate that we'll continue to do it, but it's just I just can't guarantee that we'll have every single game covered by live stream at this time. So COVID-19, there have been recommendations that are put out there, but there is nothing, no restrictions at this point at LCL, right? So masks are optional, and there's no spectator limits. We just encourage everyone to be diligent in how they take care of themselves, and we still want kids to bring their own water, use hand sanitizer, avoid using shared equipment as much as possible. We all know that the state of things right now, we want to continue to monitor that and just try to continue to provide a safe environment for our athletes. So, but I do want you to know that there are no specific restrictions at LCL at this time. And then with other schools, there are, just depending on where they're at. So I would just ask you to be respectful of what they potentially still have in place. And we will let you know what that looks like in advance. So if there's restrictions on attendance, if there's mask requirements, we'll let you know. And then that way you can plan accordingly. So I'm just putting a shout out here to anybody, well, shout out to our current sports reporters, student sport reporters, but putting it out that we're always looking for students to use their gifts and abilities in other ways if they're not on a team. So if you have a child that's interested in covering one of our sports or helping out with game day interviews and things like that, we'd certainly be interested in that, and they should connect with me. Finally, if you haven't seen, we've had some staffing updates. I mentioned Steve Cantwell is going to come on and help out with our concessions operations as a game day manager there for concessions. Kim Hurt has stepped aside as the head coach for girls basketball. Caleb Kane has taken over as the head of our girls basketball coach, and then Eric Malm has stepped down from his role as a golf coach. So we certainly thank Eric and Kim for the many years that they served in those head coaching roles. And we do not have a filled-in spot for the golf coaching position yet, but we are in the process of working on that. So as always, if you have any questions or concerns or anything comes up, please feel free to contact me. My office is right here in the main office, and I look forward to seeing many of you out at our games supporting the Lightning. Thank you.